Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We're in week 15 Monday Night Football. Showdown is right here. Indianapolis against the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football. The Saints are at home. You kind of know what that means. It means that that man right there, Michael Thomas, is a bad man, and you better get him into your lineups. We're going to try and figure out if we can, because DraftKings has been very aggressive about pricing up the superstar players on these showdowns. They also understand the way that we need to correlate lineups in order to win in Showdown, or at least give us the best chance to win in Showdown. And they've really been aggressive at pricing up Thomas and BREES and Kamara. And they've even done a good job on the other side of it with Indianapolis, with how injured they've been recently. So whether or not T.Y. Hilton plays, those backups have been priced up as though he won't play. So there's not a bunch of obvious values on the Indianapolis Colts side as well. So this makes for a very interesting slate that we're going to have to try and break down in order to try and win. I hope that you guys had yourselves a good Sunday main slate. We're going to go over everything that happened on the recap video that I record live on Twitch on Mondays, and that goes live on YouTube every Tuesday. So there's a link down below in the pinned comment if you want to come catch the live shows 6 days a week on twitch.tv. Jump over there and give us a follow. I am 700 I think away from 10,000 followers on Twitch. It's been a long road for 2.5 years over there to try and get to this point. So if you guys could help me out and go drop a follow over there, I would greatly appreciate it, as we're trying to get to 10k followers on twitch.tv. So without any further ado, let's break right into what we do on this video. Let's get over to the slate and let's look at how things look for this week 15 first look here for Monday Night Football. As I said, Michael Thomas, in home games this year, he's been pretty unstoppable, averaging 30.3 DraftKings points per game, averaging 128 yards per game in those 7 home games, getting you well past the average, well past the bonus on average at home, and averaging 109 yards on the season with 87 on the road. So when he plays at home, whether it was been with Drew Brees or whether it's been with Teddy Bridgewater under center, he's been basically the guy that you had to roster. Now he's going to cost you 12.6 if you're playing him in flex. He's going to cost you what, 19k as a captain this week, 18.9k as your captain this week. But I think you can fit him, and I think he's going to be one of the 2 or maybe 3 most popular captain, if not the outright most popular captain on this slate. Obviously, a lot of people do mass multi-enter these $10 tournaments. The big one, the $1.1 million tournament that's every single Monday night on DraftKings for this Monday Night Showdown, because they want to take as many shots as possible to try and win the money that's up top. And that does 2 things. It holds down ownership on certain positions, because if everybody had a single entry, only 3 entries, everybody would kind of gravitate towards the best or highest dollar play, the highest equity play, the highest projected play from a net projection sort of way, a median projection sort of look, because of safety. But when you start mass multi-entry, when you enter 20 lineups, when you enter 50 lineups, 100 lineups, or 150 lineups, you start to try to differentiate your captain's looks. You try to differentiate your correlation looks. You try to differentiate who you've got in there, because it becomes more of a portfolio of players. You could say, I have this many shares of this guy in captain, I have this many shares of this guy in captain, to try and differentiate a little bit. Now, there's absolutely no way to cover every base, so please do not come in here with that nonsense, because you can't mathematically cover every single base. But what it does is it ends up holding players down, their ownership down. So like somebody like Michael Thomas, where you say, well, realistically speaking, coming into this game, if I was building for cash, Michael Thomas would be in 100% of my cash game lineups. And I'm a 1 cash game lineup sort of player, and I always have been. I don't build 3 and 5 and 10 cash game lineups, try and get further away from what I believe the optimal is for that slate. I want to get that optimal, and or what I believe is the optimal, and hammer it as many times as I can. So when I have that really big day in cash, I sweep everything. But when it comes to tournaments, I'm more willing to embrace the variance. I'm willing to take the lower floor player with the possible high ceiling, especially when salary is involved. For cash, Michael Thomas is your captain. If you're single entering, you're probably putting Michael Thomas in your captain as well, unless you're more able to get off of the optimal than I am, or further away from it in your single entry stuff than I am. Obviously, that is a better tournament strategy, because he is going to carry heavy ownership in the captain spot. Now, every single captain Michael Thomas lineup that I have, I am going to build a rule in the daily roto lineup builder that says that Drew Brees, exactly one Drew Brees must be in every lineup that has Michael Thomas at captain. And you see what that's going to do immediately. It's going to drop our average salary remaining per player to 4.7K, as obviously DraftKings is well aware of Drew Brees' home road splits. They're well aware that this game has a really high total, a solidly high total of in the high 40s. What is it, 40, 47 or 48? Sorry, it's come down. No, it opened at 44. It went up to 46 and a half, but New Orleans is favored by 9. So they have a really high team total in this one. Obviously, with New Orleans playing at home, Drew Brees' home road splits on his career in New Orleans, and they've carried to this year as well, with him averaging 26.9 DraftKings points at home and 11 on the road. This is another spot where they've priced him appropriately, that if you're going to play that correlated captain and pass catcher stack, whether it's going to be Brees at captain and Thomas at the flex, or Thomas in the captain and Brees at the flex, you're going to have to make some decisions elsewhere. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go bargain basement. I've toyed around with a bunch of lineups already, and you can definitely get in some very solid lineups along with Brees and Thomas in there. People say, well, I'd have to come all the way down to like 300. No, you won't have to. Yes, you can get Taysom Hill in those lineups for 2K. Yes, you can play the kicker Lutz in those lineups for 4K. You can come back with some of the Colts that are a little bit cheaper, because now we have an average salary of 6,500. You have to have at least one Colt in that lineup. And judging from the average remaining that we have, you've got plenty of guys to choose from. Whether it's going to be Marcus Johnson, if you assume that T.Y. Hilton's going to be out, he obviously gets more run and is way more viable. If Hilton's in, then we have to look somewhere else, maybe to somebody like Jack Doyle, who without Ebron, you know is going to play a bunch of the snaps. So there's ways that you can get there with a Michael Thomas plus Drew Brees lineup. Let's talk about what we do with the quarterbacks. Obviously, if I'm going to build any lineups with Drew Brees at quarterback, and typically speaking, I do limit my quarterback at captain lineups. I'll max each quarterback and make sure that the lineup builder does not build me more than 10% of my lineups that have Drew Brees at captain, and no more than 10% of my lineups that have Jacoby Brissett as the captain. That's the first rule that I make in the lineup builder. I just cap the captain exposure at 10%, because I do not want to have more than that of my captain spot. Because in the case that the game goes the way that you think it will, a quarterback can win in the captain spot. It does win in Showdown every once in a while in the captain spot, but lifetime, you're looking at like 11% of all the Showdown tournaments that have been won with a quarterback as captain. So that's why I do that limiting. And I've mentioned a couple of times the Daily Roto Lineup Builder. That is the tool that I use. We have an affiliate deal with them. If you want to go check them out, there's a link down below in the comments. Just hit show more. There'll be a link to take you there. If you want to be a new customer, if you like what you see and you want to give it a shot, their projections are great for MLB, for NBA, NFL, college football, NHL, and golf. And they have a lineup builder for each one of those sports. And if you use that promo code SMIZLIFE at checkout, you'll get 10% off of a new membership. So definitely go browse the site, go see if it's right for you. And if it's not, it's not. And I'm not trying to take you off of whatever. If you use projections or a lineup builder from another site and you're happy there, then be happy there. That's fine. I'm just telling you, this is the one that I use, so it's the one that I'm most comfortable with. So if I'm building groups with Drew Brees, and this is for the optimizer, you want to build rules into an optimizer. The last thing you want to do is go to any site and just log in, use their projections the way that they lay, hit run optimizer for however many lineups you want to build, whether it's 1, 3, 5, 50, 100, or 150, and then upload those to the site. All right, let's play. Gamble. One, you're going to be doing exactly what that site said based on the projections. You're adding no rules to the optimizer to tell it to do anything. It's just going to try and spit out some lineups for you as best it can, because it's a machine and it's going to be as good as the projections you put into it. But we've talked heavily every single one of these shows about how important correlation is, and the way that you can force it to build that correlation, instead of just saying, well, I'm going to put all these random players together because on median projection that gives us the highest possible score based on our projections. That's not what really works in real life. So what we want to do is try and attack by building through correlation. So if I'm going to play Drew Brees, I'm going to put basically every one of his pass catchers, and you can include Alvin Kamara in that if you choose, because of how much target percentage he gets of Drew Brees' throws. Now this game, he only got 6, 8, 9, 10, 10. This is wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 type market share of targets for Alvin Kamara. So you can use him in that group. This is not a lineup. This is a group that we're going to build into the lineup builder. So Alvin Kamara, Cook, Thomas. I'm not going to include Murray in that group. We can include Ginn. We can include Traquan Smith if you want. You can also include Taysom Hill in your Drew Brees captain lineups, because when they get into the red zone, they do play both. And we have some correlation when Brees does throw the ball to Taysom Hill, or the off chance that Taysom Hill takes the snap and does a throwback to Drew Brees. That's less likely, but let's just say that Brees throws one to Taysom Hill as a tight end or an H-back in that spot. They all are very correlated with Drew Brees. I'm going to make sure that the lineup builder includes at least 2 of that group of pass catchers in every lineup that Drew Brees is the captain. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side if we're going to build Jacoby Brissett at captain lineups. If you think that Indy can keep up in this game, the first thing that people do, and I think that this is a mistake, when they see a spread of 9, they say, wow, this game's going to be a blowout, and they're going to sit Drew Brees, and they're going to score 0 points. What if, let's just talk through a scenario that maybe the Colts stay somewhat close in this game, and they're within a touchdown. Let's say the game is, let's just say it's 21-27, right? Saints are winning 21-27. The Saints come down the field on their last possession of the game and they score a touchdown with 2.5 minutes left or something like that, and they cover the spread. Jacoby Brissett would have been on the field and would have been responsible for an offense that scored 3 touchdowns, and there's a very good possibility that he threw at least 1 and possibly 2 of those. So to think immediately the way that people think when they see a large spread like 9, that this game's going to be 30-0 at halftime and Drew Brees is going to sit out the fourth quarter, people are getting way too far ahead of themselves, because it can happen the other way, and we've seen it happen the other way. We saw it with the Eagles earlier this year against Washington, where it was a 10-point spread or something like that, and it was very close until the end of the game, and then Washington scored and made it a cover for them. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that these large underdogs can still score points. It's one of the biggest mistakes that people make in daily fantasy. So if you're building Jacoby Brissett lineups in the captain spot, you want to do the same thing. The first thing that you have to pay attention to is T.Y. Hilton, and we'll know 90 minutes before lock as inactives come out whether or not he's going to play. If he plays, you need to include him in this group, and then you have to build out your the rest of your lineups, because the projections are going to change for some of these players. If T.Y. Hilton plays, the projection for somebody like Jack Doyle doesn't really change, or Marlon Mack doesn't really change, but for somebody like Zach Pascal at 8,000, his target percentage will drop massively if T.Y. Hilton is active. So at 8K, he goes from somebody who is at least a viable play to somebody that becomes very difficult to play and is going to be very low owned, and maybe becomes a contrarian play where you're hoping for him to get into the end zone and score touchdowns. Same can be said for Marcus Johnson. If T.Y. Hilton is out, much more palatable at 5,200 in the flex than if he is in. And then we can look down the list and look at the other guys as well. So for this group, I'm going to be building Pascal. Not going to include Marlon Mack because he really does not have very much inclusion in the passing game. Jack Doyle's going to be in there. Johnson's going to be in there. I will throw Nyheim Hines. I will put the kicker in that. And then any other wide receivers that you think are going to be viable for that game, forcing at least 2 of these players. And then I'm going to build a bring back group, meaning players on the other team. So for every Jacoby Brissett lineup that's in cash, or sorry, with him in the captain spot, I'm going to include every single one of the New Orleans players in a group and make sure that the lineup builder forces at least 1 of the Saints into any Jacoby Brissett at captain lineup. When it comes to defenses and kickers on this slate, I'm probably going to allow 2, but I'm going to allow 2 as long as one of them is the kicker from the Saints. So as we build in these groups, I don't want both defenses in a lineup. The chances for that to come through and be the winning lineup is very, very, very mathematically slim. And it's not a route that I want to go. You also get a lot of salary relief for playing the Colts at 2,600, kickers 36 and 4,000. Will Lutz with a total where this is does seem to be the best play out of this quad. The Saints would be the second for me, so I will allow a second one if Will Lutz is in the group. In other words, I'll build 2 groups for this. One, it's going to say Will Lutz at key. So a key Will Lutz lineup, you can use at most one of Saints D, Colts D, and McLaughlin. And then another one that says if Will Lutz is not in the lineup, max of one of these other three, to make sure that I don't get way too much exposure to kickers and defenses in a game that I think most of the offense is going to come from the New Orleans Saints side, with a little bit of a sprinkle, hopefully, from the Indianapolis Colts side. I hope that helped you guys. There is some value plays on this slate if you wanted to take a deeper dive at and looking at some of the guys that could come through. I mentioned a few of them already. Josh Hill, not really one of the guys that I'm looking at. Nyheim Hines at 3,800 is there for a little bit of a salary relief. Will Lutz at kicker at 4K, or Ted Ginn if you believe that he can latch onto a long one, with 2 of the last 3 games him having 6 and 5 targets. Way more usage for him than before, where he was sitting at 2 and 3. He will yo-yo from game to game, but at home, much more chance of him catching a long one than when they play on the road. But there's no real injury freed up 800, 1,000 or less play that I really love in this spot. Obviously, Taysom Hill is going to be very highly owned for 2K, in my opinion, with as much touchdown equity as he carries with him, with as much as the Saints want to roll him out and utilize him once they get around the goal line. That's going to do it for this video. I wish you guys the best of luck on Monday Night Football. Leave me in the comments down below a reply with, outside of Drew Brees and Michael Thomas, who are you most excited to use as your captain on this Week 15 Monday Night Showdown? Other than that, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notifications bell. And until that next video, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
He's a legend.